I am very honored to be addressing this distinguished audience through my embassy. My name is Muriel Domenach. I'm the Secretary General of the Interministerial Committee on the Prevention of Crime and Radicalization. I am a diplomat, actually, but I don't serve as a diplomat. I was seconded by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to head this interagency mission based at the Ministry of the Interior, but serving under the authority of Prime Minister. I've been in this position since this summer. I was previously France's Consul General to Istanbul from summer 2013 until summer 2016, in which position, but I'm not commenting on this, I found myself confronted with jihadists in concrete terms, because all of our jihadists come and leave from the Iraqi and Syrian theaters through the Turkish border and then through Istanbul. I will be addressing today France's response to radicalization, not the repression part of it. I'm not responsible for repression. I'm responsible for everything that's not repression. I'm responsible for prevention from detection to disengagement. France is very much like other countries, like India, like Turkey, where I lived previously. France is very much on the front line of radicalization. Our country painfully experienced repeated attacks on our territory. 239 people died since January 2015. And then through this series of attacks that the French society sadly is prepared to be facing again, although our intelligence and administrative measures we're doing everything possible to deter and prevent. France is on the front line also in terms of propaganda of Daesh. We believe we have 16,000 people that are radicalized. Of course, by Indian standards, that might not sound as big as it is, but to French standard, it is big. It is bigger than probably than any West European country. Although we don't have the highest number of jihadists per capita. Maybe you should know that we believe we have 700 people, French people on theater. 200 have died, 200 have returned. We believe it's an assessment by our intelligence services that we have 400, more or less, roughly 400 minors on theater, half of which are under 5. And our assessment is that we have 290 women on theater. Why is France on the front line of radicalization? Well, probably because of our failures, lack of equal opportunities, the economic and social crisis. But paradoxically also because of our achievements. It's also because France is a country where a number of our ministers, and I'm saying this proudly, are ministers of different origins, not like their grandparents were not born French. and still it's possible to make it if you were not born to a Franco-French family. Still it's possible to make it in our country. This is those achievements that are being targeted by Daesh. Basically, they're saying the same thing as the far right to the children of immigrant parents: you don't belong here. It's also because of France's motto that France finds itself targeted by Daesh: freedom, equality, fraternity, freedom of expression, the right to caricature, even the right for blasphemy, equality, equality between men and women. We're very strict on that. But also we are very tough on discriminations. French government recently launched a campaign called Tous unis contre la haine, all united against hatred, and discriminations have decreased by 50% over the last year. Fraternity also is the third part of our motto, the vehicle of which we very much believe in France is secularism. Not secularism in the sense that we would exclude religions as a negative thing, but rather in terms of prioritizing civil law over religious belief. Civil law as a prevalence of civil law as a condition for, we say, vivre ensemble, togethership. How have we tackled radicalization as a public response in our country? France being a Jacobin state with a very strong sense of what the state should be doing, it was for the state to take the initiative in addressing radicalization, but it's a partnership with civil society. We're not going to succeed unless we strike the right partnership with civil society, from local governments to opinion leaders, artists, community leaders, and everything. I would say public response to radicalization, again, not the repression part of it, but the rather prevention part of it, has 7 pillars, like 7 pillars of wisdom. First, definition of radicalization, and here it's very important that again we point out what radicalization is and what it is not. Radicalization is violent extremism, anything that connects extreme ideology with a possible turn to violence. If it's no possible turn to violence, then we're not in a radicalization process. Also, it's very important to insist that radicalization is not Islamic by essence. Sadly, the Quebec attack demonstrated that it can be far-right ideology, it can be other ideologies. Sadly, in France, it's Islamic radicalization that killed 239 people, but it's not Muslim by essence, of course. Detection is the second pillar. It's very important to report both through a national mechanism and also through a local mechanism. Our mechanism is twofold. We have a hotline, we call that Numéro Vert, that has been developed since 2 years. It proved very successful. It's been 45,000 calls to the hotline. Of course, not all those calls prove effective. It's actually a very small proportion of them, less than 15%, that prove effective. And of course, it takes state of law guarantees like anonymity, like we don't keep the data more than 5 years, and we would ensure judicial control. The mechanism is twofold. It's through the national hotline, but it's also through local security services that take information from all sorts of local actors, like schools, like social workers. Very important point to be mobilizing social workers in reports and all sorts of local actors. Currently, it's 50%, so half of the reports come through the national level, and half of the reports come from the local level. We have 12,000 reports and 4,000 making overall the 16,000 people that we believe are radicalized, so 4,000 are, of course, objectives for security services. Now, third pillar is training, of course. We need social workers and public agents to mobilize. My predecessor has been conducting the training of 20,000 people. And of course, we count very much on them to further train other colleagues, and it's been key to have social workers develop a sense of ownership on radicalization, a very specific process, and we're now insisting on the training of social workers to further develop mobilization. Counter-narrative would be the fourth pillar. We have to be preventing the radicalization of minds. Counter-narrative from the state and counter-narrative from civil society. Counter-narrative from the state, of course, is key. Of course, France, as I said, a very Jacobin state, had to develop public response from the state. We developed a government brand called Stop Jihadisme. For those of you that are familiar with French, you should have a look. Stop Jihadisme recently developed a very dynamic campaign. We probably took lessons from other countries, including from the UK. Not necessarily that the UK has such a strong state counter-narrative, but in terms of the techniques and everything. So Stop Jihadisme developed a campaign called hashtag Toujours le choix, hashtag Always the choice. It's like a serious game exemplifying the dangers of radicalization with a man and a woman. At every step they have the choice, and sadly they end up making dangerous choices. But counter-narrative from the state is limited by essence, we believe, so it's for the civil society to further elaborate and further develop through initiatives, private initiatives from artists, humorists. I very strongly believe that humor is a weapon of mass prevention. Like there's a playwright, a Belgian playwright called Ismail Saidi that is now showing a play called Jihad. It's the story of 3 young Belgian kids that go to Syria through Turkey, and they're experiencing all sorts of tragic but also comic endeavors. Of course, counter-narrative takes the mobilization of all parts of the society. including those that call themselves Muslim. It is key, and we, with my team, met with Muslim representatives, including representatives of the Muslim cult, that call themselves, that are claiming that they're conducting concrete initiatives in terms of the prevention of radicalization, be it in counter-narrative, or in training, or in the actual monitoring of the radicalized youth. Fifth pillar is the actual monitoring of the radicalized youth. Once a person is considered radicalized, it's an assessment process, and then this person is referred to through a joint family support and prevention cell. We have family support and prevention cells in each and every of our départements. France is divided in more or less 100 départements. So each département has a family support and prevention cell that gathers state representatives, security services, social services, and also social workers. Each person that is monitored has like a referent, we say un référent, and our first assessment is that the more the monitoring is pluridisciplinary, social, educational, and psychological, the better. Currently, it's 2,400 people that are being monitored. So 2,400 people are being monitored throughout the French territory, and 1,000 families are like accompanied. In a lot of cases, it takes a prior monitoring of the family before social workers can actually work, can actually monitor the young. Sixth pillar, it's disengagement. This one is very difficult, of course. France is facing a very difficult situation in our jails, and we are trying to develop a third way as a complement to jails and what we call the open background. A third way exemplified by a first reintegration center that was created in central France this fall. It's very difficult to address the right audience for this third way between open background and jail. We're working on it. We will be assessing what has been done so far, and of course there with the possible return of those French that are on theater right now, including mothers and children. Again, we believe the majority of the French on theater might be minors. So of course disengagement will be a difficult one. Seventh pillar, international cooperation, of course. And for that, I'm very much expecting to come to India soon. Of course, we have to be creating a coalition of willing and able, and defeat Daesh militarily, but also we have within the EU, but also outside the EU, and I very much count on exchanges to be with my Indian colleagues. We have to be insisting on the internet actors that they should do more in terms of, one, taking down negative contents on their networks, and two, they should be promoting positive contents, not only through the training of those that are initiating positive contents, but also through the promotion of those positive contents. Ladies and gentlemen, this is pretty much it, our 7 pillars of wisdom for the fight against the prevention part of the fight against radicalization. No magic wand, but we're developing and promoting good practices. The French society is fully mobilized. The French authorities are fully mobilized, regardless of what the results of the elections will be in France. The fight against radicalization will stay a priority, with its repression part and its prevention part. I would be very happy through my embassy in Delhi to further exchange and elaborate on that. Thank you very much for your attention.